I'm Luke and this is my soon-to-be adventure van. With all the electrics sorted and the battery box fixed in place, it's time to build a removable bed module which is gonna sit right here. I've got the plans and measurements printed out, but since there's a huge thunderstorm brewing in the sky, which will be coming our way pretty soon, we're gonna set up shop in the carport today. It looks like we don't have enough wood for all the pieces. We should be able to get all the walls for the sleeping module out of the big panel though, and then have enough scrap wood to make 2 lids for the battery box, and then also 1 of 3 panels for onto here. But then we for sure gotta go back to the hardware store to pick up some more plywood, but I'm gonna wait for that until I have the kitchen drawn out so I know exactly what I need to get. Rough cut is done, and if you're new around here, my saw is just too flimsy to give me perfect corners, so I gotta mark everything up and then use the router. Cut the edges more precisely so that everything will fit in the end. Just spent a fair bit of time measuring out and marking up all the openings for the panels, so now on to cutting out some holes and then using the jigsaw and the router in the end to get the panels looking just like on the plans. All safe to say this took way too much time and it left a huge mess all over the carport. Quick cleanup, and now I've got the multi-tool out and the router with the roundover bit so I can finish up all the inside edges, then also do the framing pieces for up top. After lots of prep work this morning, I finally got to dry fit the bed, and it doesn't look too bad in here. But since I've worked off the 3D model on SketchUp, I somehow messed up the dimensions of the back wall, so the support from the bed doesn't cover the frame on the wall. But that's not gonna be visible once everything's covered with the wood and the mattress, so oh well. Now to fix the module in place later on, I've got these T-nuts, or slot nuts, whatever you want to call them. They didn't have the right size for this track, so there is gonna be some modification required. But in the end, I think it's gonna be quite a good way to get it in and install it securely, but also be able to take it out again. First I gotta do more sanding though, so I'm gonna see you once it's time for the glue up. Well, good morning. It's another super gross and really cold day. It's like 4 degrees Celsius right now. I did get quite far yesterday though, and the only panel left is the front one. And I also had to fix one of the holes over here because I completely messed up battery again. So those are the last 2 things we gotta do. And once we're done with that, we can get out of the cold and go to the hardware store to pick up some more wood. I just remembered I actually want to try out the DC to DC charger while driving. And since it's super cold, let's try out the battery heater first. Because the battery might have actually dropped below the limit. Let's see what it reads. Nope, still at 9.4 degrees, so all good. That should have been the last big glue up besides the little dowel plugs. I've already got it connected to my phone, but it's reading off right now. So let's switch on the input from the car battery. Still off, but it reads 11.8 volts, which by the way is quite low. Let's press the little button, which should turn on the charging, and we still read off. Okay, that's weird. So now we're reading almost 14 volts. We still have the remote, so maybe it was off. Try again. So I just bypassed the switch and the warning about the remote is gone. So that tells us that something with the switch is wrong. And if we now start the van again, then it should finally charge. So let's see. Also, it didn't sound good at all last time. Engine shutdown. I don't know. It's running. Engine shutdown settings. Oh. Yeah, maybe that was the problem. Now look at that, we're charging at 340 watts, 25 amps. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I finally came up with the design for the kitchen unit, and it's gonna be a gigantic project. And then I made a cut list, so we need a full sheet and then some bits cut to size. And if you don't want to miss the kitchen build, then make sure to subscribe, because I'm sure it's gonna be quite a wild episode. And talking about subscribers, I just hit a pretty big first milestone. There's 1,000 of you guys who chose to subscribe to my channel, which I still can't quite believe. Now it did take me almost 2 years, but I'm so happy to have all of you guys on board and always seeing your comments on the videos. It just makes all of this YouTube thing so exciting. So thanks a ton to all of you. And to celebrate a bit, we're gonna take the scenic route to the shop. Made it back home, and I hope I didn't promise too much about the scenic backcountry road. I just absolutely love driving through there. Now the charger worked pretty well too, but I did have some weird settings activated, so we only got 35 amp hours instead of about 70 we should have gotten. That's still pretty good. What wasn't as good was the service at Hornbach. Like I absolutely love that store, but today like all the employees were super rude and pissing all the customers off, and he refused to do 3 cuts on the panel and just did 1, so I couldn't load the panel into the back of the van, but on top, luckily I packed the straps, but yeah, that was a weird experience. So I got all the panels broken up, and now on to making the lid for the sleeping module. And I've already got a panel that fits perfectly, so the plan is using the flush cut bit on the router, and then get those 2 panels to the same dimension. Well, never mind, I didn't get it done in time. Now Mom is giving yoga classes, so we better be quiet. So let's just take a good panel and get all the holes drilled. Got a beautiful day to finish up all the rough woodworking, but first I want to show you some footage from our weekend in Ticino, which is the southern Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, and it was just so gorgeous. So I think we just found the perfect location for the first proper camping trip with the van. So with that in mind, we really gotta get back to work. even though that's like a 10-year-old, pretty cheap Bosch drill, it never failed to surprise me. I drilled all of those 62 holes and there's still 2 bars of charge left, so pretty happy with that. And after all that drilling, it's almost time to empty the vacuum again. But first, let's go back to the bed where I got to cut the dowels off and then use the flush trim router to get all the edges nice and clean. Now unfortunately the drill bit left quite some tear out on the underside of the panel, so I fixed the worst spot with a bit of glue and then went with a 45-degree bevel just to get a bit more material off. And talking about the round over, I think it's time we flip these carbide tips so we get a clean cut again. Just finished doing that 2 more times, and the pattern kind of reminds me of the cheese grater Mac. So I hope Apple doesn't sue me. The router bit cuts so well with the flipped carbide bit. There's no tear out at all. But enough talking, let's time travel a bit. That was a ton of work, and please excuse the flickering. It's a bit of a pain filming outside when the weather's shifting so much. So please leave a like and subscribe down below, and maybe one day I can afford a proper workshop. But now back to this thing over here, where we still need to make the tops. Finally got all the parts painted, and I even put a second coat on after tons of more sanding. So now, as explained before, we gotta make those plugs fit into the railings. So I built a little chick that should support this thing while I'm grinding on it. That sounded really bad. Well, anyways, I bought a grinding disc just for this purpose, so hopefully this will work. So the first one worked okay-ish, but it took forever with the grinding wheel. I put the cutting disc on and hopefully we get through it much faster. Also, I had to shear off my winter coat because it's gonna be so hot this week. I think today's 32 to 33 degrees Celsius. So yeah, let's get all the plugs cut. Just finished cutting and grinding the last one, and obviously it was much easier with the cutting disc. So it's about time we get this thing into the van. That's the bed almost done, and the only thing left is going to be the kitchen unit, which will double as footrest, but that's going to be for the next episode of the adventure van build. Thanks a ton for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm going to see you in the next one.